Now we're going to look at question 4. How do global awareness and 21st century life skills translate into high-quality teaching practices for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten classrooms? We're going to look at the essential high-quality practices, focusing on the child and the child's development, focusing on the child's interests, the family cultures, the community helpers, the community relationships. We're particularly going to give you some information about KWO charts and following children's interests. We're going to use some information about a project approach and some ideas about including technology.
And you know, Bobby, some of these things we've already talked about, how important it is to focus on children and their family before we focus on the community. So are we going to delve into this a little bit more deeply?
Let's go into some depth here. Let's talk about the uniqueness of the child, relating it to the 21st century skills, like learning skills and innovation skills and information skills, technology skills, those things that improve your life and your career skills, like your flexibility and like your social skills, your leadership, becoming responsible. So we're going to emphasize the child's home life, the community helpers, and then the world surrounding them.
And Bobby, what you are talking about, really we can delve into in the North Carolina Teacher Evaluation Process Manual if we look at pages 12 and 13 in particular. So that is a good place to go where you can find more detail about 21st century learning framework, something that we shared with you in the very beginning in the video. So take a look at your North Carolina Teacher Evaluation Process Manual. And it is amazing that we are teaching all these skills that you just mentioned in pre-kindergarten, but we really do, don't we?
Yeah, and the fact that they're learning by their interests and by the things that are innovative to them, not something that somebody has created that they think they know, but because you're there and you're observing the uniqueness of the child and you know all those other components that are so important. So yes, uniqueness of the child is number one.
Yeah, and then look at these pictures here, the little guy on the telephone and the little girl printing her beautiful picture. It's just amazing how they can do so much independently at this age. And then we obviously need to remember that every child is part of a family.
Yeah, one of the things that we're learning is so important to focus on the relationships in the family and the traditions and the rituals, what your family rituals are. Times that you eat together, times that you come together as an extended family, your culture beliefs, your culture differences. It's really important as a teacher that you think about your own family, that what was important to your family and how you related to the child's family. So take a moment and reflect on your own family. What were the important things that happened? What were your rituals? What were your traditions? Give it a thought.
So you know how critical that is if you do that, because we all have traditions in our own family that we bring into our work and in our work with children in particular. And one of the things with our diversity in families these days that is also so very critical is the different roles that people play in their family, including our young children. And don't forget extended families. Look at these pictures again. I mean, there are so many variations of families these days that we really need to take a closer look at the importance of the family for our young children.
The next thing is you need to think about is how that family forms relationships with persons in the community. It's really important for the teachers and the children think about building relationships not only within the classroom, but within the community. So it helps children learn about themselves. It helps them learn about themselves with others. I have to refer to the Foundations of Early Learning and Development now on page 52 to 60, which we looked up, where it talks about your social and your emotional development and the roles of the people in that community. There will be all kinds of things that will come out of that, like visits from and to a dentist, or having a bus driver drop in, or have medical responders there, firefighters or doctors. There's a suggestion here that we use that KWL approach to find out what children already know about these, what they want to know, and what they want to learn. And that could really be the start of a project.
So, Bobby, that's what KWL stands for. What we already know,
Right.
what we want to learn, and what we have learned.
That's
That is
right.
awesome. That is one strategy where we can really use documentation to find out what children are interested in. So let's take a closer look at some of these examples that we can use.
Well, now this is an example that I actually visited. These are community helpers from the emergency medical responder group visiting a child care site. If you notice on the picture on the left, they really had a great visit. They put one of the children on the whatever you call that,
A gurney
yeah, and
or a stretcher?
it's like a stretcher thing. It's like whatever they would transport you. I need to talk to a medical responder, and let him try out. And you notice they placed him in the emergency vehicle. What a great visit that was. They now will identify those workers. The thing I have to caution here is we do have lots of visits that come to the centers. We do visit lots of places, but the visit requires careful planning. Noting developmental appropriate discussions with the children about the helpers' roles in caring for the community, being a friend, helping us, but to make sure that you've talked to the community helper before they interact with the children, so that they're not describing some gross details or some tales that will raise more questions than respond to interest.
And Bobby, that also models great respect for your community when you plan as a teacher with your community helpers to schedule these visits, to talk about what your children are like, what their level of understanding is. So great caution to carefully plan any of these events. And that's the whole purpose of a high quality developmentally appropriate practice. It requires, like Bobby said earlier, a lot of intentional planning. So here is another example, and this happens a lot too when we go around in preschools and kindergarten and schools, is the firefighters come to visit the school. They bring the fire truck and the fire gear, and the children may sit in the truck. They might try on some things like the hard hats or the boots or the gloves. And again, it requires careful planning in order for you and the children to have the maximum learning out of these situations, specifically to how they, as little kids, fit into that community, what their role is with their community. And you know, sometimes it can actually happen spontaneously. Sometimes the firefighter comes into the school to inspect alarms in the classroom. And that might not be planned by the teacher, but it can be a great opportunity to have this fire inspector talk to the children about why they're there and what the safety is and what kind of protections there are for children to consider. So even though we want a lot of intentional planning, taking advantage of moments that are just there to teach is a great strategy as well.
Now we're going to take a look at a project approach and to way to engage pre-kindergartners and kindergartners in learning more about things that they're interested in. And particularly, these projects support language development. And many of the ideas that we'll be sharing with you, we learned from Supporting Dual Language Learners and Their Families, that was written by Meredith Love and Pamela Shue, and it was published in Young Children, NAEYC. So we're going to take you through one of those projects. Look at what it says here. Choose a project that's interesting enough to engage all the children, and it supports their language development, their level of development. Choose experiences that many children have, and one of the things that we'll be looking at is pizza. We found out that dual language learners, everybody knows what a pizza is, even if they might call it different things. And then back to the KWL approach. What do you know about pizza? What do you know about a pizza restaurant? What do you want to know? And then after you've had that experience and played with it some, then what did you learn?
So what does a KWL chart look like? Well, here is one version. This is a teacher who used the whole wall for a KWL chart. Things that grow was her theme, was her project. And you see all the wonderful things that she and the children were able to do, post, look at, reflect on, and it kept growing and growing. So this is a great way for children to learn, to also document their own learning.
Maybe excuse me, I was just thinking, the documentation part, we don't want to lose that out, because that really, whether you document with pictures or words or cutouts or glue or whatever, the documentation is the part that the pre-kindergarten and the kindergarten child is really ready for.
Right. And see all those sticky notes on there. Those were kind of dictations that the teacher made based on what children were saying. But let's go back to that pizza project. That really sounds interesting. How would you get started with that?
Well, this really is a lot that we've taken from the pizza project that we read about in Young Children. Introduce the children to new vocabulary words for the items that you would be using in the project, like pizza pan, or restaurant, or dough, or roller, or pizza cutter, or oven, a pot holder. Once we got into this project that I was part of, I paid a lot of attention when I went to a pizza parlor to see really what they were doing. I noticed they were using round pans, and they were using cutters that were round, and there was a lot of round things in there. And introduce it through picture books, like fiction and nonfiction, like The Little Red Hen Makes a Pizza, or Hi Pizza Man, or Saturday Night Pizza. And then begin that KWL chart. What do you know about a pizza? What do you want to know? And when you get through, what have you learned?
So here is another example of a more traditional KWL chart. And the teacher talked with the children about what they already knew. So she documented it, and you see the names of the children written next to it. Then they started talking about what the children wanted to learn about the pizza. And again, that was documented. And you see the names next to it again, and it's interesting. There's multiple children who might want to learn the same thing, but then there are individual children who have their own need to know.